Welcome to another episode of The Sky Is Not Blue. I'm your host, Matthew Willett.
And I'm Danica Tamsin.
We're going to be debunking fact from fiction
on all of your favourite conspiracy theories. And today we're going to start off with
the moon landing conspiracy. Wow, what a place to start.
What a place to start. It really is an interesting theory. So we've all been taught that the moon landing happened 1969. Neil Armstrong was the first man to stand on the moon. But in actuality, is that what happened?
Is it a myth? Is it real? Who knows?
Who knows? And we've got the perfect guest on today to speak about it.
So our special guest today on The Sky Is Not Blue is a moon landing expert with 20 years of research under his belt. He is currently living in China but was born in the United States of America. Dr. Rasaviharii, or also known as Rasa, is in the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for giving us your time. Can we start off with you sort of telling us like what you do and how your path crossed with the moon landing path?
I graduated the university in America in 1999, and I was offered some scholarships because I was majoring in astrophysics and quantum mechanics, and I was even offered a job at NASA once, but I turned them down. But this was way back in 1999. And then later, many years later, that was 2001, I saw this documentary about the moon landing might be a hoax. And at first I didn't believe it, but after doing some research, now definitely confirmed that from some insider information here.
Oh, really? So you've got inside knowledge that it was staged?
Yes.
Because that first part to me, the fact that NASA could keep such a big conspiracy quiet, so they're a massive company,
they've got
corporation.
Over 200,000 people working on the moon landing.
Yeah, that to me is crazy how they could keep that quiet and it not be.
Well, let me jump in and say, there has been a couple of whistleblowers. But yeah, I mean that's a very small number. There was a series inside of the NASA and all the family corporations there. There was people who knew and people who didn't know, and so the people who knew, it was their job to convince the people who didn't know, and they did an extremely good job. I mean, all the science, is very difficult to debunk. They did a very good job making it look real.
Yeah. Well, me and Danica, we've been doing a lot of research into it ourselves, and some of the debunked theories just don't add up to us, especially with, for example, the flag waving. A lot of the debunked theories, I don't know, they just don't add up to us. Like saying it was scrunched up and it was loosened out, like that to me isn't a good enough solution.
If you see the American Moon movie, then they go into detail about that. It's like, okay, the typical lie is that, okay, they had their hand on the flag, and so then when their hand is moving, the flag moves. Okay, that's fine, no problem. But we have other scenes where there's nobody even near the flag, and it's still moving.
Yeah, that's what didn't sit well with me, because myself and Danica, we had a little argument off camera about the flag moving, and it just didn't sit well with us. That's all we can say on the flag. It did not sit well.
Besides from the flag, is there any other key details in what we've been shown what makes you believe that it's not real?
Yes. Well, okay. As for myself, the reason I know it's not real is because I have insider information. But regarding, my job is to help. There's people who don't believe the moon landing is real, and they always come up with all these reasons why they think it was a hoax. So my job is to help them refine their reasons, because most of the reasons they give are actually wrong reasons. So that's part of my job, is to separate what I call the real smoking guns from the weak arguments.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I have a lot of real smoking gun.
Obviously, you've mentioned how you've got insider information.
Let's say, I know people in several different space agencies. I have friends at NASA, I have friends in the European Space Agency, and I have many friends in the Chinese Space Agency. So I think that's about all I want to say.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now.
That's fine. But that's fascinating to hear, because it's almost as though like a lot of people in that industry know that if they get found out to say saying too much,
well, let me jump in here. Is that there's the main problem of getting to the moon is the radiation.
Yeah.
Okay. So now there are scientists who their job is to design protection for the radiation.
Yeah.
And there's many people working for NASA, many people working for the European, and many people working for Chinese. And every one of them who's working in the field of radiation knows that Apollo missions were not possible without any protection from the radiation.
Yeah.
So, that's actually part of my job. I'm actually one of those people who's working in the field of how to protect from radiation.
No, okay. Because me and Danica, we were looking into radiation, and it almost again, it didn't really sit well with us. But they used an example. It was almost
firewalker.
Yeah, like firewalking. So they argued that if you get through fast enough, you won't be affected, and that to us we didn't buy it, because radiation is not a joke. Not a joke. And another thing regarding the radiation is we've not sent humans as far as the moon since 1969.
Yeah, we've been in low Earth orbit. We're protected by the Van Allen belt.
Exactly.
When we're in low Earth orbit.
Which again is how can we do it back then but we can't do it now? Is another question that arises.
Well, the more time it goes, I mean, supposedly we have the May of 2024 is the Artemis 2, and the Artemis 2 will be supposedly it's going to be a manned craft to circle the moon, and they're scheduled for May 2024.
Okay.
So that will be, if that actually happens, then that'll be the first time human beings have left low Earth orbit. They're not releasing any details about how they're going to protect the astronauts from that, but there was a very special, called the Powerhouse, that was built in Europe and sent to America. It's a box that the astronauts live inside of, and that box is made out of a very special material. And that will protect from the radiation, but they're not going to tell you what that material is, because then that'll be blowing the whistle on the Apollo mission.
Yeah, I was going to say, you bring it back to the Apollo mission. How were the astronauts kept safe if for so much time and stress is going into this 2024 mission?
Yeah, and the further they get, if they delay it, if they delay it again, the further they delay this thing, the more people start to wonder, like, wait a minute, why is it taking so long?
Yeah, because obviously at the time they were in a race with the Russians. Do you think it was more of a like we did it first sort of thing for the Americans?
Yeah.
No. Okay, let me jump in here.
Definitely. Yeah.
I'm a historian. I actually have published books on history. I write books about history.
Okay.
And what happened was there was an agreement between Russia and America in 1965. And this is, it's a long story. I have documented evidence. But basically, it was before 1965, the Russians were way ahead of America in doing everything. But then after 1965, they were neck and neck. And they the first EVA, the first soft landing on the moon, bringing rocks back from the moon, putting retroreflectors on the moon. And the whole thing was, because that was 1965, they made the agreement that they were going to help each other. and that the agreement was in 1975 they were just going to join ship and make the first space station. Anyway, Russia knew that America was going to be faking parts of this, and America knew that Russia was going to be faking parts of it. Even the first EVA in 1965, the first Russian, to step outside of the ship, that's a fake video. You can tell it's a fake video.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm sure that there has been people in space and people stepping outside of the ship and all of these things. So I'm not saying the whole thing was fake, but they faked parts of it here and there, and they both knew that the other people were doing it. It wasn't. This whole idea of a Cold War is a bit of a misleading idea.
It's all political, isn't it, when it comes down to it?
And let me just say one other thing was that, at the same time of this so-called space race, there was also this supposed nuclear arms race going on. So in the 1965, the year that I said they made this agreement, the USA was way ahead of Russia in production of nuclear weapons. And then in 1965, after this agreement, then the US stopped production of nuclear missiles. And they said, okay, if you let us win the space race, we'll let you win the nuclear arms race. So, of course, Russia went on to build way more nuclear missiles than America.
So they made an agreement to sort of say, you can win that race, but this. Right, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, and there was also something there about the Vietnam War that also America entered.
Yeah.
But that's going into a whole nother.
I was going to say that's a whole different kettle of fish.
So, do you think there's a reason why NASA has never spoken about the moon landing directly then? So NASA has never came out officially and made any comment towards people who disproved the moon landing?
Okay, the first insider whistleblower, was in 1976. Bill Casing, right? So Bill Casing wrote his book in 1976, and then the year after, in 1977, NASA released an official document to debunk Bill Casing's book. And then two more, the second and the third hoax documentaries came out in 2000, 2001. And just after those two documentaries came out, then NASA released the second document, official document debunking hoax documentaries. So they've been, actively trying to keep that secret,
Yeah. Bringing it back towards the moon landing, regarding the astronauts that did, in quotation marks, touch feet on the moon, there's one thing that they haven't done, and that's been interviewed or been allowed to be interviewed. Do you believe there's a reason for this other than obviously that it's been faked, or do you reckon that's the sole reason for them not being interviewed?
No, actually, most of them have been interviewed, but most of them stay away from interviews. Only Buzz Aldrin, is quite open and coming on to lots of TV shows and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, some of them, I'm sure that they chose to remain a little bit recluse. There was this one, Neil Armstrong came to this one university and he gave this speech about removing the layers of cryptic encoding or something like that. It was like hidden behind truth, hidden mysteries or something. Anyway, I'm not saying he's whistleblowing here, but he was. Yeah, I think that some of them have I mean, we all know that Buzz, he became alcoholic,
Yeah.
So they might have, but now he's doing okay, but, he might have been eating a hole inside of his
It's almost that feeling that you need to tell someone, but you can't.
Yeah. Maybe he's told his wife.
He probably has, to be honest.
Earlier on in the interview, you mentioned how there was some aspects of the moon landing which you believe are real?
Well, of course, they send unmanned craft. Here in China, we have moon rocks which were brought back to Earth from the Apollo mission, and we also have lasers that we can bounce off of the mirrors, retroflectors, which are on the moon. So, but the thing is that moon rocks on Earth and retroreflectors on the moon is not evidence of a man on the moon, because the Russians also brought back rocks with unmanned ships, and the Russians also put down retroreflectors with unmanned ships. I'm working on a new. Well, I guess hopefully it'll be like a documentary maybe someday. But it's about how did they do it, and that's the really big question, because they provided a lot of scientific evidence that it was real. So how did they pull it off?
Yeah,
this is the one question that. Yeah, this is the one question which most of the skeptics don't answer very well. We have to sort through all this scientific data and figure out, well, which part of it could have been fake and who was involved, because it was like, there was scientists there watching, taking the data down, they couldn't all have been in on it, so it's like trying to figure out who was in on it and who wasn't, and then like the people who were in on it, like how did they fool the other people who weren't in on it? They were receiving data, but they didn't actually know where that data was coming from.
Yeah, and it's going to get harder to try and find the truth, because it did happen many years ago, so people naturally will die. Like people with the most information, probably you have to depend on hearsay. So,
but let me just kind of contradict you there. From my insider source, from what I've understood, is that there is an agreement where NASA will eventually admit, but they're going to wait until after they finally do send people to the moon.
Wow, that is.
This is what I think.
It really is just
So we're assuming that'll be 2025.
Well, the 2024 Artemis 2, they're giving it 2025, maybe 2026 Artemis 3.
Wow.
But, I will see. I doubt either one of them will make that deadline, but, maybe Artemis 2.
Wow.
See, the problem with Artemis 3 is the spacesuit. Now this new high-tech 3D printed spacecraft that can protect from radiation. I believe that Artemis 2 might send people around the moon. But to actually land on the moon, also no problem, because it's the same ship. But the problem is, once you try to step outside of the ship, is your spacesuit going to protect you from radiation? That's the big problem.
Yeah.
I could go into a lot of detail there. And they've already admitted that publicly. That, we're having problems with that spacesuit, so we got to delay that.
It's certainly eye-opening, isn't it? Because how we're having so much trouble now, but back then it was so easy.
Well, I mean, for me, it was. I first was introduced to the idea that it was a hoax in 2001, and I was skeptical of that, for a couple months, and then I saw absolute proof that it was the photographs were fake.
Yeah.
But then I didn't get this insider information until maybe 2015.
Right. Okay.
So now it's like, I don't even need to
I know.
go to dig through documents, even though I do that anyway, just to help other people.
You've got enough evidence in your mind for proof. Yeah.
Anything else you may want to mention on the topic of the moon landing that you would want our listeners to know?
I've started making a list of what I call false claims, people who are providing evidence. Oh, it's a hoax because of this and hoax because of that, and a lot of those evidences that they're providing are false evidences. And so I would like someday to be able to kind of educate people, that this is not a real smoking gun got here. Yeah. But other than that, that would take me a while to explain all that, but I just encourage people to keep on, researching and try to read through the NASA documents. See, that's the main problem. Most of the skeptics aren't reading through NASA documents, So that's why they don't know the official story, so they're providing these false smoking guns. So yeah, just if you really are interested in this, start reading through the NASA documents, see what scientific data is there before you try to debunk it.
So yeah, look for the numerical issues and the accidental mistakes that they may make, because there will be some.
And also, I have this Facebook group called the Moon Landing Hoax, and we've just gone viral. In the past month, we went from 3,000 to already above 11,000.
Wow!
I don't know how this is happening, and it's just growing every day. I don't know how long it's going to go.
That's good.
But you're welcome to come there, and I can help provide any technical answers to questions.
Perfect. I'll leave a link for that at the bottom of the podcast for any of the viewers if they do want to find out more. Okay.
Well, thank you for having me.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. That was amazing.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
And you. Bye bye. Wow, that was Dr. Rasaviharii, part of the Moon Landing Hoax Facebook group. That's amazing to hear, isn't it? Inside knowledge about the moon landing being false and a potential confession in 2025.
And it's quite interesting the more you listen to him speak, because he's actually saying that some parts of it's true. Overall, after hearing him speak, what's your opinions on the moon landing?
Well, mine. My like I stated at the start of the podcast, my opinion on the moon landing is that it is faked. In my eyes, it's not. It wouldn't have been physically possible for them to get there if we couldn't do it with the equipment we have now.
Yeah.
And I think Ras has just
solidified it.
Yeah, almost confirmed that, to the fact that men didn't go on the moon. I'm not saying that a rocket didn't go. I'm saying that human beings did not land on that moon.
Do you know what? I'm very 50-50, very impartial.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think that sealed the deal for me.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. The main thing for me is I should be able to look at it through and through and see that was a fake moon landing. But there is a lot of ifs and buts still.
And some fake, some real.
Exactly. Yeah. So I do believe that there is a little bit of shadiness going on. And as you know, the name of this podcast is The Sky's Not Blue, and I do believe that who knows.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll cut the podcast there. We'll leave it for you guys to discuss in the comment section on whether you believe the moon landing is real or fake. Obviously, you've heard our opinions. It'd be nice to hear yours. And on that note, I've been Matt Willett.
I've been Danica Tamsin.
And this was The Sky Is Not Blue.
Bye.